Hello, everyone, and welcome to February's instalment of our Empowerment at Home Energy Efficiency Webinars for Change. This month, we'll be talking all things finance. We have 3 speakers this evening, and we'll have a presentation from each of them, followed by me talking a little bit about grants, and then an opportunity for you to ask some questions. So to announce our speakers, Cara is Selce's Project Development and Fundraising Manager. Cara is an expert on community shares and investing in local green energy. We also have Toby from Crew Energy, who will be speaking about group purchasing and how this can help you fund Retrofit. Toby has worked in the energy industry for 18 years. He runs a company that develops sustainable energy programs for third sector organisations. And last but not least, we have Flavia. Flavia is Selce's outreach and communications lead, and Flavia will speak about private financing options. Selce, for people who don't know, Selce stands for South East London Community Energy, a community energy cooperative that was founded in 2014 by local people who wanted to see localised climate action and work together for a cleaner, fairer future. These webinars are a part of our Future Fit Homes project, which is a project supporting people to access available discounts and grants, expert advice and support to start on their retrofit journey. So thank you for joining. Cara, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and if you're ready to go, please take it away.
Okay, so in my section, I'm just going to cover what are community shares, how community shares support your community organisation, and how you can invest in community shares with Selce. So there's the 3 topics, 2 big calls to action, and I understand we're going to have some questions at the end. And I have to do that. That's annoying, isn't it? So community shares, for those who don't know, this is going to be a super simple introduction to community shares. So community shares are a way for a community, any community, to band together to buy the assets that they need in a democratic way. Cooperatives broadly and community benefit societies are able legally to issue community shares. And that's a special feature that cooperatives, community benefit societies, and very few other special kinds of society have. You might know of some, such as the cooperative, Brixton Cycles, Selce. You might know someone near you who has a cooperative shop. There's a cooperative shop in the Archers. There are over 7,000 registered cooperatives in the United Kingdom, and they've been shown to be quite sustainable forms of enterprise. Invested in by over 500 community businesses, and there's many across the country. So my way of putting this is we pool our finances and we can purchase parks, community buildings, pubs, shops and renewable energy. In the case of Selce, we only use community shares to fund solar photovoltaic arrays and LED lighting retrofits, mainly for schools and other kinds of community building. So by which I mean any building that's owned by a non-profit or a local government organisation, but sometimes we will even put a solar array on a building that's owned by a for-profit as well. Usually a community share offer, like a crowdfunder, seeks to raise a specific amount of money for a specific project in a specific amount of time, so that everyone in the community knows what it's for. Although it doesn't have to be, but it often will be. Investors become members of the cooperative, which is important, and members often receive a reasonable amount of interest and their money back after a specified time. So from the community building's point of view, it's a way of raising the finance they need to do something which they would otherwise find impossible. From an investor's point of view, it's a long-term place to put savings. I should say that with Selce's model, and I'm going to come on to this in more detail, it's an incredibly easy way. So for some community organisations that own a building, could be a school, could be a community centre, could be a church, could be all sorts of things, with the right kind of roof, solar or an LED retrofit, if that's more appropriate, can be incredibly easy, low risk, low hassle, and relatively inexpensive. It's almost too easy. It's almost like it sounds too good to be true. And because the way the money flows through this system is because the partner organisation pays Selce back over an extended period. They pay very little upfront and we pay our members back. But all of that I'll come on to a little bit more detail as we go through. So the next thing to think about, and this is my first big call to action, is how can this benefit you in your day-to-day life? So what I would encourage everyone to do is think of the buildings that you use in your day-to-day, in your week-to-week. This might be a library. It might be that you take your children to school. It might be that you are even on the board or volunteer regularly at the community centre. It could be a place of worship. We all use a huge number of buildings in our day-to-day lives, and if you're a fan of Selce and you've taken an interest in this webinar, it's very possible that you sometimes walk around and think, why did they put solar on that roof? And the reason is often it's stressful, there's project management stuff to do, there's risks to understand, there's expensive feasibility studies to be completed, and the technology needs to be purchased and installed. And if you run a primary school day to day, you have not got time for that. So that's where we come in. And what I encourage anyone who's taken an interest in Selce to do is, if you walk around and you see buildings and they're part of your life and you know someone who's responsible for the management of that building, or you can get yourself introduced to the person who's responsible for the management of that building, then you can say to them, can I introduce you to Selce? Would you like to hear about how you can get solar on your roof? If you're not sure about how to make that initial pitch, you can call me, you can call the other people who've been involved in this presentation, you can contact us and say, I'm not confident enough yet, can you talk me through it again, because I've got 10 minutes, it's not going to be enough detail, or we'll make an approach. The only way that we get solar and LED retrofits done is by organisations really coming to us. There is not a aggressive sales team here at Selce. So that's what I would really encourage everyone to do. We have already got 11 solar arrays and 7 community centres which have had complete LED upgrades, and we've raised £500,000 through 4 community share offers to date. All of those buildings have paid nothing or next to nothing up front and are already saving money on their energy bills and passing those savings on to the communities that they serve. My next slide is, if that doesn't work for you, if you rack your brains and you can't think of any buildings, or you've already done it, you've thought of 2, you're going to talk to them, but you're keen for more, you can also join Selce as a member investor. And our next community share offer will open in the next month or so, TBC, and will be our largest and most ambitious community share offer to date. I expect that we will double our membership during this period. We're raising over £300,000. We're installing more than 800 individual solar panels. It's really going to be exciting, and we're going to need everyone on board to tell their friends as well to make sure that we hit our target. I should say something about how you can invest. If you are not already, if you're on our newsletter or follow us, you will get loads more information. As soon as we go to launch, there'll be loads more opportunities to find out about how investing in community shares works. But if the top line information that you would need would be, you can choose to invest between £250 and £20,000. You must read the risk statement on the slide. It is not an entirely risk-free investment. It's only suitable for you if you have other savings and investments that are for emergencies in your family. It's a long-term thing. However, if you have got what you need for day-to-day and you wish to make an ethical investment and benefit the climate, our community, and the families who benefit from our energy advice, then it could be for you, and there will be more webinars and more opportunities to meet me and ask loads of questions about all the details of how it works.
I think what's really interesting about what Cara was talking about in terms of community shares is that it's looking at how we can mutually support one another. And the reason we asked Toby to come along is because he's looking at how we can work together in community in order to help individual homes. And there's something quite exciting about that process of how we can think about our homes also as something that are tied into communities. So that's kind of the link between the two of them. And Toby's organization Crew is a sister organization to Selce and doing really interesting things that are quite aligned with what we're doing here in Southeast London as well.
Great. Can you see that one now? Lovely. So yeah, we're the Southwest London cousins really of Selce. So Crew originally stood for Community Renewable Energy Wandsworth, but I struggled to say that, so they changed it to Crew Energy for me. And we cover similar things. We both do energy advice, we both do decarbonising of buildings, we probably do something a little bit different in business energy audits, and we're both looking at retrofit. So very aligned, the two models, and we're working increasingly closely together, working on joint bids and things, which is really lovely. So what I thought I might talk about tonight is just trying to help people with retrofit and the ways that we can make this pathway a little bit easier, really. And we're going to start with collective purchase schemes. So as a community group, we help a few thousand people a year in fuel poverty, giving them energy advice. And part of that is that we tend to buy lots of LED light bulbs, draft excluders, radiator foils, which gives us access to wholesalers, and therefore we can buy them cheaper than you might as the general public. And it will be the same for Selce. Selce will have a similar sort of program. So one of the ideas we've been kicking around, it kind of seems an obvious thing to do really, is leverage that ability to be able to buy stuff and maybe extend it as well. So I put heating controls in here. I think if we turn around and said, look, we want 200 or 500 heating control systems, that might be smart thermostats, smart radiator valves, TRVs, the 1 to 6 valves, you get smart versions that you can program. We can probably get deeper discounts because of the volume. And then what you would do is maybe book out something with the council, like civic suites or something like that, and then have a sort of docket day where you come in with your docket, and then we kind of say, right, we wanted 20 of these, 15 of these. And the concept would be that you kind of do your own audit of what you need, how many different light bulbs, the types of light bulbs, the types of radiator, how many radiator packs you need, draft excluders. If you're in a Victorian house, you might want brushes for the sash windows, that kind of stuff. So we think it's a decent possibility to make it work, and we certainly know the numbers work. If we just take something like Radfleck, which is the radiator foils that we use, buy those on Amazon or from Screwfix, something, they're about 23 to 25 pounds. Including that, we can pick them up for 15 pounds wholesale. So there are quite substantial savings to be made by doing that. We often buy LED light bulbs for as low as 60p. They might not be the most energy efficient ones, it might be 7 watts rather than the expensive one being 5.5 watts. But in the scheme of moving from 60 down to 7.5 or 60 down to 5.5, it's great that they are more affordable, really. So that's kind of the idea. The other bit that we're looking at is, if we were doing this and you end up sort of almost not quite street by street, but very localized buying of this stuff, we could then potentially work with electricians and plumbers to offer a discounted service, because I'm sure it's the same in sort of numbers in Southeast London, but in Southwest London, if we go to our local who are very good, our local electrician and plumbers, their day rate's like £500. So even if you only, they're only going to be there for a couple of hours, they're going to charge a half day rate of £250. Now, if we could say to them, right, you're going to do 4 or 5 houses in a day, and you're just going to do those things, we should be able to get you a substantial discount on those installs. So I think schemes like this could work. And then if we think about, these are the small measures, just get you started. If we then think about some larger measures like solar, then again, there's further opportunities, really. So I asked somebody about container level pricing. So we work with some people, and they do quite a lot of projects in Africa. And initially, I just went on to Google, and I Googled 440 watt solar panels, and it comes out around about £164 per kilowatt. So I think it was about £72 for a 440 watt panel. Inverters, a 2.5 kilowatt inverter costs about 390 quid, I think it is. So that works out about £158 per kilowatt. And then if you look on the right hand side, you can see the container price versions of those. Now, we would be talking about buying 400 panels. Yeah, so we're looking, I think it's sorry, 720 panels. So it works out something like almost like 150 kilowatts we would need. So it's quite a big scheme. You know, if you're going to put 2.5, 3 kilowatts on each roof, you might be looking at 50 to 60 households for this to work. But the savings are quite substantial. You know, just on this part of the kit, we're looking at £330 of savings. Then if you think about it, you can probably get similar discounts for frames and the wiring. It's interesting. And then if we can negotiate deals with, say, the local scaffolding firms, that they can move from place to place and it's all very localized, it's all very easy, then you can see how we might potentially, on a sort of £5,000 install, be able to shave off up to maybe £1,000 by doing these collective bulk purchasing schemes. So I think this is a really, really good concept. And it's something that I think community energy kind of want to work together anyway, not necessarily just for domestic retrofit, but we've all got these projects. We're putting solar on schools, we're putting solar on churches, civic centres. If we could have some kind of local, centralised storage unit, we could all dip into it and buy products a whole lot cheaper. And then we're just paying for the installer costs, which much more transparent, knowing what people are charging us, because all of this kind of tends to get hidden and marked up. So we should be able to bring down product prices by quite a lot, really. So that's the next idea. And then this one is a little bit more innovative again, really. And this was my attempt at using Gemini to give me a container on a street that I said had to be parallel with the houses and was covered in the green wall. And somehow it decided to have a tree growing out of it. And after about 16 attempts, I gave up and stuck with this image because it gives you a rough idea of what it would look like. So we've been talking to people about putting a whole chunk of battery storage in a container and then delivering a sort of substation level to houses. And there's a lot of benefits, right? Clearly, if you're buying that many batteries, it's going to be cheaper than you buying one 10 kilowatt battery for yourself. We're talking about maybe having, a 750 a megawatt. You've only got one install. You're installing this. It's probably going to cost you, I don't know, let's say £10,000, worst case scenario. Now, if you're on a street of 80 houses, you'd probably all be charged £1,000 to install your battery. So that's £80,000 against £10,000. So there's a big saving there. We know also that, none of us has space. London houses are really tight. If you're thinking about having a heat pump in a back garden, that's something. Then we're talking about putting a battery on the back wall as well. It all starts to kind of get a bit ugly in the back garden. So actually taking this away and just having one sort of slightly ugly container that we can hopefully beautify with a bit of green walling is a much nicer solution for people within their homes. And then that also opens up to the fact that we've now got scale. So smart optimization, the idea of having a battery really is you use it as much as possible. And typically these things get installed by solar installers where they've put solar on the roof, they put a battery in and said, right, that's all going to go into your battery now and you're going to use it later. And that's it. That's the end of the story. But there's so much more that could be done with batteries. We're looking at time of use tariffs where maybe you could store overnight at 9p and release at peak times. And let's say it costs you 6, 7p for battery storage domestically. That's a 13, 14, 15p tariff. I can't remember the initial number I started on the overnights. 9p, yeah, let's call it 7p, so it's 16p. Well, the market at that time of day is probably 30 pence. So there's those savings. Now, clearly, if we're doing it at scale, those numbers drive down. The storage might not be 7p, it might only be 5p. So it's even more attractive to do that. But there's that whole optimization. Now, if we've got something of this scale, it's very easy for someone to manage it. People are less interested in managing your 10 kilowatt house and your neighbour's 10 kilowatt house, but they will take, say, half a megawatt or a megawatt worth of power. The last bit of that is when you're optimizing batteries is we want to look at flexibility. And flexibility is when National Grid or your what we call DSO, the DSO are the people who get the wires to your house. Where we all live, it's UKPN. And they're providing you power. So when there's a power cut, it's UKPN that come out and fix those cables and get your power back on. Well, they need flexibility. They need, sometimes there's too much power in the grid. Can you take some of that power and store it? Other times they'll say, look, we're short of power. Can you deliver some power? And they will pay pretty decent money to do that. Now, they'd much rather be doing that at half a megawatt or a megawatt level than they would at 10 kilowatts or 5 kilowatts. In fact, I think UKPN only go down to 10 kilowatts. That is their street level, base level. So there's a real good opportunity here, and obviously it's a bit like, I don't know, say if you're in a block of flats and you've got a shared hot water system, you need less when you're all sharing it than you do if you've got your individual unit, be it a battery, be it a hot water tank. So there will be some people that work late and don't get home until 8 o'clock at night. Other people work shifts and then they're nowhere near their house between 4 and 7. So that peak demand that we're all trying to avoid, or use our batteries instead of taking from the grid, that kind of gets aggregated out a bit. So we probably need less on average per household to deliver by doing it this route and getting the result we need than if we were just putting our own batteries in. And obviously our own batteries tend to be either 5 kilowatts or 10 kilowatts. There's not a huge amount of granularity, where this, we can create that. So that's essentially the idea of it. And obviously this is replicable as well in, say, small scale heat systems. We could, that rather than having that as a battery, that could be a one big heat pump at the end of the street, and then you would have a loop running in where you'd heat the water up, say 20 degrees, feed that into each person's house. They'd have a heat exchanger, and then they'd upgrade that heat to maybe 45, 55 degrees. So similar sort of concepts, but what we're trying to do is drive down the cost per household of installing this stuff compared with if you just did it on your own. And I think these kind of measures will make the whole retrofit journey much better in terms of payback, and therefore when we come to the finance argument, it's going to help. And I think that's it from me. Yes, it is.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Toby, yes, I will now share my screen and go through some grant information for about 5 minutes. Flavia will speak about private financing options, after which you can ask our panel some questions and test their knowledge. First of all, Selce are proud to deliver Love Lofts in partnership with Greenwich and Lewisham councils to provide a free helping hand to Greenwich and Lewisham residents to insulate their lofts. This grant ends in mid-March this year, so please act now if you would like to take advantage of it. I will have all links and contact details on the screen at the end of this section as well. Next up, we have the Great British Insulation Scheme. The scheme covers insulation for the home, and they are prioritising external wall insulation, cavity, flat roof, loft for households with no insulation yet installed. You may be eligible for this if your home has a valid energy performance certificate of D or below, or is in a council tax band A to D. So the level of financial support will be also determined based on your household. So full support of the household can be provided if it has an annual income of 31,000 per annum or below, or is in receipt of certain benefits listed there on the screen. Partial support is offered if the income is above 31,000 a year, and this will be determined based on the measure in question, the household income and the home, and this will be confirmed as you move through the grant application process. The Great British Insulation Scheme runs until April 2026. Next is Energy Company Obligation, or ECO4 for short. So ECO4 offers insulation, ventilation and heating system upgrades focused on low-income households and households with mean-tested benefits, and for EcoFlex, households with residents with health conditions worsened by the cold. Please also note that the property must have an energy performance certificate of D or below. So there are some quirks to ECO4. It is currently on pause, and we will be able to communicate the waiting times for applicants soon, but this is currently months, not weeks at the moment. They are also currently not delivering double glazing as part of the scheme, although this may be publicised elsewhere on the internet. So ECO4 also offers upgrades to homes that are currently using fossil fuels to upgrade the system, So a lot of Eco4 is dependent on what the contractors provide. I'll be able to provide a bit more information about this at the end of my talk. So Selce collaborates with Repowering London on Future Fit Homes. This team coordinates the Eco4 and EcoFlex applicants, and Future Fit Homes will do the preliminary eligibility checks and then refer to a contractor. I will have a slide on with details on referral on the screen in just a moment. And finally, we have the boiler upgrade scheme. So this grant can enable a household to receive a grant towards a heat pump. So you can get 1 grant per property. Current details for eligibility include that the applicant must own the home, you must be replacing fossil fuel heating system, and have a valid energy performance certificate. So please note that you could be eligible if you have already insulated your property. So finally, here are the links and QRs for finding out more about the grants. It's important to know, particularly with Eco4, eligibility isn't always straightforward. There are multiple layers involved in eligibility and different factors, i.e. your home's energy performance rating, and even damp or mold issues that can affect the support that you qualify for. So once your home is assessed, the coordinator and the contractor will review the findings before confirming what work can be done. Not everyone will be eligible for the same support, so decisions are made based on a range of factors. So the best approach is to give it a go, stay informed, and be aware that changes may happen along the way. I'm going to talk very quickly about Trustmark. So Trustmark is the registering body for all contractors, and they have recently struck off 39 contractors from the register. So Trustmark are very much there to help. So if you have any concerns about a contractor, go straight to Trustmark and make a report, and always check contractors on Trustmark. And next up, we have Flavia.
Great, thank you. So just to when there's like one slight unicorn to the grants that I've heard of, but I've never seen delivered in practice, and I've been trying to understand from contractors who's delivering it, that kind of ties together all the ideas that we've spoken about today, and that's called infill financing funding, which is if you live on a street level where there's several people who are interested in retrofitting together. If there's some people who are eco-eligible for other households, they may waive, may extend the eligibility to that to the households that usually wouldn't qualify for eco. If they can do, in the same spirit of what Toby was talking about, they can do all of the houses in one go. So that's worth thinking about. It hasn't been implemented too much, but it's worth thinking about if you have neighbors, you have friends who live in a nearby area, to think about how to join forces together in order to access the funds for those who might not be able to access them. But also in terms of overcoming barriers to different kinds, to grants and how to access them. Often one of the things that stands in the way of people accessing grants is home repairs on a very basic level. And there's certain funds that you can access through your local authority that may be able to help you. If you are eco-eligible, you are most likely also would qualify for a local council home repair grant. So in Lewisham, the grant is for £10,000, and then you can also take out loans at very low interest rates to come back to repay them at up to £30,000, and that would be repairs to homes that are deemed hazardous to health, for broken boilers, for loft insulation, as well as for emergency repairs. And I'll just drop quickly into the chat. I'll drop the link to the supports through local councils that are available. Also in Greenwich Council, there's a similar scheme of a grant of £500 for emergency repairs, plus loans of up to £25,000. To qualify for in both councils, it tends to be people who are on income-related benefits and have medical conditions that exist within the home. but if you can, depending on which council you're in, you can have a look in more detail. The other program that's quite interesting is through the London Rebuilding Society, which we've worked with a number of times. And this is specifically for homeowners that are over the age of 55, whose homes are in dire disrepair and are in need of improvement, but they're unable to finance it themselves. It's an equity release program, but it's an equity release program that's grounded in justice rather than profit. So the London Rebuilding Society are a really good place to look if somebody you know is over 55 and really does need to have a lot of work done to their home, and the owner retains 100% ownership until death or they go into care. And again, I've dropped the link to that into the chat, and it'll be in the YouTube notes below. And then there's also a program, and this isn't specifically centered in our local area, but Lendology offers home repair loans, and they're a financing loan CIC that works with local councils and does loans on behalf of local councils with an average repayment of 4 to 6% financing. And that'll depend on which council you're in and which borough you're in, whether Lendology partner with the council and they can deliver on it. But again, I'll drop the link into the chat so that if you're curious about seeing if Lendology might be an option for you where you are, you can have a look at that. I'll drop it in afterwards. And then the other bits of financing that are worth addressing for those who don't qualify for any of these supports. Amy, do you mind going to the next slide, please? Thank you. There are a few banks that are offering private financing that's either extended mortgages or it's looking at private loans, and the two main ones that are available that are specifically looking to help with home improvements for energy efficiency are nationwide, and that you need to be a nationwide mortgage holder. So if you're looking to renegotiate your mortgage at this particular time, then this might be, and you want to be doing upgrades to your home, that might be a useful place for you to look. The details are on the screen. I won't read them out loud just because it's reading lists and that's not particularly interesting to listen to, but it is a really useful mortgage in terms of for the home improvement extensions. It's 0% for the first 2 to 5 years, and the payback is quite quick, expected to be quite quick. So yeah, it's quite a good option as nationwide for those who are clients with nationwide. And then Amy, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Santander also has a Greener Homes program, which they've partnered with EcoFurb, who's one of the larger players in terms of retrofit in the UK. And on that, they have a few different options that are available. Generally, if you have a mortgage, you take out your mortgage with Santander, you are going to be going ahead and getting a whole house plan made of your home or a retrofit assessment. Through EcoFurb, you can receive a £500 cash back on your mortgage in the same way that you might if you're purchasing and you're looking to have some of your solicitor's fees waived. You can have that done through this program. And then there are two ways that you can access support through Santander for that. One is to extend your mortgage to borrow at least £5,000 for 5 years, and that is also on a 0% financing, I believe. Or you can take out a loan, which is a home upgrade loan that's separate, which is between £75,000 and £25,000, and that's at 6.2% financing. And so they're both really tangible options. Obviously, tying it in with the mortgage, that relationship already exists in the bank, so they're incentivizing people to do that. But that's quite a nice offer as well if you happen to be at a moment where that would be really beneficial. And then another way of financing is solar financing, and there's a lot available, and there's increasingly more and more that's becoming available. And there are two main ways of accessing solar financing. One would be through solar installers. So if you're seeing lots of ads on YouTube at this particular moment in time talking about free solar panels, that might be either on a prolonged kind of payback system in the same way that you might have Klarna, but with is it Klarna? Yeah, Klarna, or it might be with at a certain percentage rather than 0% financing. That's one way of doing it. If you are curious about that and you are interested in engaging with solar installers, I would highly recommend that you come to our webinar next month, which is going to be run by Giovanna, who's our CEO, and she's going to be talking about all of our lessons learned about working with contractors, specifically around solar, of things to look out for. So this will also give you another tool in terms of keeping your eyes open around engaging with installers and being kind of more aware of cowboys. But there are some that are doing good deals. And the other is, which many people may be more familiar with, would be to access it through energy companies. And there are two main incentives and financing models that are being leveraged that I've seen. One is on a monthly payment model, which, for example, Octopus and Eon are using, where you spread out your payment for the cost of solar over a monthly period for a number of years. And they've got on Octopus, at least, they've got a nice little app that you drop in what your household needs are, and they can give you a rough quote right away of what your monthly expenditure would be in order to access that. And that's at 0% financing. Or there's an incentive model, which British Gas are offering incentive to customers. One, for example, is a 25% time-limited discount on certain tariffs if you go through one of their identified installation partners. So there are different ways that energy companies are encouraging people to go solar and to distribute energy. But the main thing is that the eligibility criteria is that you need to be their client before, but you can transfer over to it. So do have a look and see what your energy company is offering in terms of support to go solar. Can I have the next slide, please? Oh, that's it for me in terms of private financing. So Toby also said in the chat, for those that didn't see, Lendology is working with Merton Council, and the rate of the loans is 5.5%, which is quite a decent lending rate. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you, Flavia. And in terms of the future, the government has announced a publicly owned clean energy company, GB Energy, and a Warm Homes Pledge for this year. So once policy announcements are made, Selce will be ready to share resources. So please sign up to our newsletter to get the latest news. And thank you so much for listening. I will stop.